Everybody, what is going on? I am Maximus Rex, and this is Big Baby Reviews, here for another review of the Image Founding Fathers books. I am joined by Mark Darden, flashing the books down on his screen. And today we're looking at the comic he's holding up there, Wildcats, issue number 2 from the original miniseries.
Yeah.
With a cover date of October 1992. So I would have been about 11 when this came out. It says October, but didn't it come out in August, or is that the first issue? I'm mistaken there, I guess.
Oh, I think you're probably just mixing up with the first issue.
Yeah.
I'll take a look, but yeah, we can carry on.
Yeah, so starting off with the cover, now we have the PDF version here, so we're just gonna, Mark was flashing the cover there, but I'll flash it as well. This is the original issue here, and the original kind of gimmick cover. I don't know how well that appears on the screen, right? So we've got one of those foily kind of shiny covers that were very popular in the early 90s. I would guess that this is probably Image's first gimmick cover. Am I wrong on that?
First one, let's see. Yeah, actually, I think you're right. It's the first one to be a gimmick. It comes out, and then Shadowhawk comes out the same month. So then that's the two gimmicks come out the same month.
And I was reminded.
Yeah.
I was reminded from the cover price that this issue was more expensive. So
Yes.
Originally I was kind of like, man, did they just up the price because of this gimmicky cover? But then I went through the book, counted the pages. We actually get 25 pages of Wildcats in here, plus the extra backup, I guess, preview of Wetworks, which is 4 pages. So you get 29 pages of comics in here. So at that point, I do understand a slight price rise, which is not the end of the world for some extra pages to the comic.
Yeah, Youngblood #1 was like 32 pages. But yeah, Youngblood 1 through 3, no special covers. Spawn, I mean, they were painted, unless you're counting like a flip book, but like this kind of like complete gimmick where you could put a background behind any art. Yeah, no, it was the first one. Was gonna say Wildcats #2 actually it came out in September, so it actually was back-to-back months for Wildcats 1 and 2. He was on time for the first 2.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, then he had 3-month delay to #3, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah, I remember being really jazzed about this at the time. I think I talked about how I kind of discovered Todd McFarlane through Image, early Image Spawn issue #2. I was already a pretty big fan of Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee, and Jim Lee was probably my top guy still before I really got into McFarlane. So I was really jazzed for issue 1 of Wildcats and issue 2 as well. Was really happy when this came out. Stellar artwork throughout. So we'll talk a little bit more about the plot and the story as we go through the book, which maybe not as stellar as the artwork, but definitely some good stuff that we can talk about art-wise as we go through this book. As for the cover, it's kind of a repeat image. There's a splash page in this issue that I find is like pretty much the same composition.
Yeah.
The thing I'm wondering about this cover is, where's Grifter?
Yeah, and Maul. They're both.
Oh, you're right. They're both missing. Yeah.
When we see the splash page, it'll be obvious, but they're both basically their positions on the splash page is up where the logo would be. So they just cut them out to focus on the characters a little more. And that does make some sense. You get enough of them in there.
Well, I could imagine Maul, the size, just the size factor with Maul is like he would cover up the whole background, I guess, and create a bit of visual confusion maybe, but then on the splash page it works. So maybe just a bit of deadline-itis for Jim Lee figuring, I got to get through this cover and I got to get this out. So that's pretty much all I got on the cover. You got anything else?
No.
Good. We'll talk real quick about the credits page, right? This PDF again is now kind of a DC produced thing now that Jim Lee has sold all the studio stuff to DC, so you don't get any mention of Image as you do in the original credits page. It's all kind of taken out.
Or Malibu.
That's right. Yeah, Malibu was mentioned as well. Yeah, I forgot about that. Few interesting things I saw here in on the credits page, that we've got some background ink assists. So already early on, getting some extra help to get these books out, if not on time or almost on time. So we've got Carl Alstater and John Ty, or Tiffy, or I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that. Don't know about that guy, but Carl Alstater, I know for sure, has done work for Wildstorm later on as an inker, and I think even as a penciler. And the other bit is there's the first kind of mention here in an Image comic about Sam Keith coming to Image with his character, the Max, and here it's saying that he's he's going to be published in darker Image. As we know, that only happened for one issue. Unfortunately, that anthology, which would have been cool, I was really looking forward to, only lasted one issue. And if I'm not mistaken, chronologically, am I right in saying that the Max issue #1 actually came out before Darker Image 1?
Yeah, Darker Image #1 got delayed by a couple months, so the Max actually beat it to the shelf by, they were in the same month, but like a week or two. There is something interesting if you look at the PS, where he's talking about Wildcats #3 and that would be the conclusion, but it's not. They go to an issue 4.
So even after issue 2, he thought he would do it in 3 issues, and then probably working through issue 3 figured, man, there's just way too much here that I need to cram into this 3rd issue. So I guess he decided to go for a 4th issue.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Rob had the same thing where he was supposed to be 3 issues, but then it became 4, and then it even had to kind of, it tipped over into Brigade to finish out the fight.
Yeah. Listen, we know as well, we've talked about this before, how they're kind of just shooting from the hip here. And, as things were coming in, things were, being decided upon or changed real quick. So I'm not going to fault them for that, because we got some extra books out of it, which we were probably very happy to get back in the day, and that we'll be able to review as well.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the actual book.
Yeah. Similar to the first book, if you remember when we were looking at the first one, I kind of thought they could have opened on the splash page, a void, and it'd be a little more action-packed and exciting. And this one kind of does that again, where, again, you could start with the big flash and then work your way to this rather than open up on the people talking.
Well, once again, you're also starting with, characters that we don't know, in a way that, like, issue 1 did the same thing. The comic is Wildcats. We haven't read it yet. Let's say if we're talking about issue 1, but we've seen the advertisements, we've seen the characters, and opening up and not seeing them at all is maybe not the best idea. Like you said, you can have those same story points, but maybe just in the order chronologically be a little bit different. And here we're introduced to a character who will kind of become quite important overall to the Wildstorm universe. We assume he's kind of a villain, or at least an antagonist for the Wildcats in this issue. But later on, he's going to become kind of like the mentor of Gen 13, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And he's kind of, to me, he's kind of like the Nick Fury of the Wildstorm universe. I feel like he's very much ripped off Nick Fury. He doesn't wear the eye patch, but his eye's messed up and he's got a big scar going across there. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. He's totally their Nick Fury. He plays the same role, same personality, similar look. It's the only thing that's funny about it now is that now he's kind of White Fury because of the change to Nick Fury in the Marvel movies and in the comics.
Okay. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Caucasian Fury.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the same guy. Completely. Not a lot happens on the page there, other than they're just like, oh, sir, we're getting the psychic emanations again, because they've got all these psyops people who are monitoring the world psychically, looking for disturbances in the force.
Kind of a precursor to Minority Report in a way.
Oh yeah.
I don't know.
The book was probably already done, so.
Sure. Yeah. Definitely. The idea probably came from the book, and then Minority Report really gets into the zeitgeist more with the movie, I guess, with Tom Cruise obviously bringing a lot of attention to it. But this would have been, my first kind of exposure to this kind of idea of psychic agents scouring the world for, evildoers or terrorists or something like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say the colors, again, throughout this issue, I'm really impressed. This is a good example of it here. It's pretty monochrome, but very subdued. And there's just something I like about the atmosphere that it's creating here. This cold kind of technological room, this surveillance room, I guess, for lack of a better term. uh, and all through the issue, the coloring. Once again, early image. They're not going over the top too much with computer effects, and I really feel it strikes a really good balance with the art here. And one other thing, just a weird bit of negative space down here. You know,
Uh-huh.
I can understand that maybe he left it to have the title go here, and almost feels like maybe the title was longer or something, and then they shortened it, or you know, just real practically, there was no room in the panel for these word balloons, so they just kind of chucked them on the outside. I just find this section here just kind of weird compositionally.
Yeah, definitely the issue tends to be over wordy in spots where you could cut out a lot of stuff and make it easier for the reader. If you wanted to have the white space there, keep the white space,
Yeah, exactly.
keep the framing for the art. But yeah, got overly wordy. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I mean, they're basically just leading into them discovering the event from the previous issue. Um,
We'll move on to the next page. And
Yeah,
that's,
page
yeah,
two, it's just them discovering the explosion. Like, oh, sir, there was this explosion downtown. That's from Dakota assassin setting off the bomb. And so they're basically playing catch up a little bit. I did have I was mentioning it to you before we hopped on, but just kind of the word salad that they throw in this issue, where a lot of times they just it's this thing, sir, a zebra alert. And that confused me. I just thought, what's a zebra alert? I, from a military standpoint, I think you would just should say Zulu alert. Like that's the last letter in the alphabet. Zulu would mean maybe a final alert. Like, oh no, this is right here. This is a final alert. This is happening right now. And then it says a psi storm is conning in on us. And I looked up conning, and conning was a stomach expansion. And so it sort of makes sense of like an explosion and an expansion of energy, but conning specifically about stomachs. So it's a weird use. Um, so it's just odd. It's very odd use of words. It's a medical term that doesn't really fit. Um,
there's a lot here when it comes to this page and other pages when we go through the book. There's a lot of exposition, you
mhm.
know, that I think is meant to clear up some of the stuff that was happening in issue one that maybe we really didn't understand. On a certain level, to me, going back to when I was 11 years old, I mentioned this earlier when we were talking about the book. There was a lot of this that just went over my head, you know, all this kind of, you know, pseudo CIA secret ops kind of
Mhm.
conversation that obviously those guys are probably really into and probably have a little bit of knowledge about. Brandon Choi, the writer, Jim Lee. But I remember a lot of this stuff just kind of going over my head when I was 11 years old and being, you know, slightly confused and not necessarily more well informed about the actual conflict that the Wildcats are going up against in the book. I feel like any description I would read about in like Wizard magazine or comic book shop news or something that described the conflict with the Damonites and the Cherubins, not quite sure how to pronounce that, made more sense to me in the press and in Wizard and stuff than in the actual book. The actual
Oh
book
yeah.
just made me more confused and it seemed more convoluted.
Yeah, when they would explain what it was going to be about, it would make sense. And then when they go to deliver it, not so much.
A lot
There's
of
little bits.
gobbledygook.
Yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in the language, there's bits where they add little, it's like they're having people having a serious military discussion, something that would be very organized and need to be fast and efficient, but they're throwing in little, I don't know, like slang where I feel
Yeah.
like it's out of place.
Yeah, it's like they're mixing military speak and terms with their own, and it's just neither is quite consistent, and it's just like I said, very confusing.
Yeah,
Uh,
trying to sound cool for the street, but then also sound real
in a
to get the
military
aesthetic of
sense,
the
right?
military. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a weird cross. I think it'd be
Uh,
better to have a character who talks in slang and then have the characters who don't. And then you could have both.
it just feels to me like maybe like they're trying to appeal to themselves as adults with maybe more of the specific military speak, but then trying to make it cool for the kids. And it doesn't work for either, right? Like I said, for 11-year-olds reading this kind of stuff, it kind of just goes right over your head.
Yeah.
Real quick on this page, just a few art things I wanted to mention that I thought were pretty interesting. That
Yeah.
top panel, the background with those
Uh-huh.
abstract elements
Yeah.
really remind me of the stuff Rob Liefeld was doing at this period. And both guys, big fans of Barry Windsor Smith and Weapon X, which was a huge kind of series
Mhm.
had a huge impact artistically in a lot of these image guys. So I feel like he's getting that from there. And then at the bottom middle panel there, we're getting a little bit of Jim Lee's version of Kirby Crackle as one of their psychic operatives is I guess being burnt up for some reason is what she's mentioning here.
Yeah.
We'll find out later that that's the result of this next panel here where we see Void and the Wildcats kind of reintegrating from teleportation into the IO workspace that they're in.
Yeah.
Which then gives us the splash page on the right, which again we talked about earlier is basically just a repeat of the cover. The composition is very similar.
Oh, you want to switch pages?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I should do that. Whoops, a little slow. There we go. So the composition is pretty much the same as the cover. You know, the characters have been redrawn. Now, the characters who are missing from the cover, Grifter and Maul, are present. The one that I feel like is basically the same as the cover, if you look at Zealot, she's just flipped over. She's in the exact same pose as on the cover. And I feel like maybe that might be the one where he just redrew it real quick, or actually maybe flipped it and copy pasted it into there.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of them are, it's extremely similar. Like Warblade is also the same figure or extremely similar, but where he's just reduced in size and moved. Voodoo is very similar in her pose. It's more like she's just angled a little differently. Void is, yeah, definitely same figure. Would have been great if it was just a fresh redraw, and from maybe a different angle. Maybe instead of the front view, I don't think a side view, but come in at an angle, maybe a down angle, or have them, you know, kind of in between a side and front angle, something to make it look different. Because otherwise you've opened the book, turned a page, and you're just looking at the same thing again. Very similar. It's not exactly the same, but it's so similar. It just feels like a waste.
Yeah, I think if you're going to repeat the same moment, it's got to be from a different point of view. It's got to be from a different angle. It's got to be a new take on the same kind of shot. And unfortunately, it's not what we get here. Not that it's bad in any way in and of itself, but just it's a lot of repetition, basically.
Yeah, it would be very cool that if this cover represented the moment before the moment of them teleporting out, and then give us them teleporting in on this third page. Story-wise, it would fill up a little.
And I was going to mention story-wise too. I do find it kind of a weird moment because what's basically happening is they've teleported out of the situation where they were where the explosion happened. And as we see here, they kind of appear, and then on the next page, you know, just re-teleport out real quick.
So they explain that?
They don't. They don't really.
They get into it. Yeah.
Okay, I must have missed that. So what's the reason?
Yeah, what it was so those psionists that what are they? They're black razors.
Okay.
So that this spy organization has all these psionists, so they're detecting around the world, and when this powerful psionicist Void goes to teleport, their psionist guy tried to effectively pull them in, bring their energy here and trap them, and then they appeared here, and she managed to teleport out before the trap could close. Okay. So they just flashed in, oh no, flashed out.
Okay, at least it's explained. I guess I missed that when I was reading it.
Yeah, it's explained pretty quick. It's within just a couple bubbles. So yeah, you could definitely miss it.
Because the only reason to have that happen really is for Lynch now to be aware of the Wildcats specifically, I guess, and then later on in the story, him chasing them was going to make sense, right?
Yeah, it's one way of doing it, but yeah, it makes sense. They tried to pull him in. I did think it was so in this fourth panel where the whole team appears back on the ship, the fact that they don't have Spartan in the shot bothers me. They're just saying everyone's accounted for, but he's physically not in the shot.
Yeah, and I mean, you could have just maybe had him here in the background between Zealot and Grifter, just a bit of a head and shoulders kind of shot, right? So
yeah.
Probably just something Jim Lee missed, right? Like you know, feels like
Yeah.
he's probably working really fast on this one. You know, as the editorial said, his daughter was born and around the time he's working on this issue. So he's really talking about in that editorial how he's, you know, taking care of a baby and a lot of sleepless nights. So, you know, I think we could afford him a little bit of leeway on this one. But
Yeah.
yes, it is an annoying detail that, you know, one member of the team is not a parent or apparently teleported back to the ship.
Yeah.
But even just on these small panels, I gotta say the art is just really magnificent. I like the composition of this panel here, you know, the background elements and stuff. He's really pouring it on, and as opposed to Rob Liefeld, not cheaping out on the backgrounds at all. So I do definitely appreciate that in this issue. I feel art-wise, the issue is really complete.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Art wise, there's nothing negative to say about it. It's just the storytelling, the dialogue not being up to the same standard is frustrating.
That's it.
I do like this page turn, so you have to turn the book sideways, and it's a great use of it because of the fact that he wanted to get the landscape of the ship so that you could have all of the characters sitting next to each other. It's a great use of it.
Kind of a cinematic widescreen kind of format. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they get into this conversation. Maul asks Void, like, "Hey, how'd you know to get us out of there?" And I just felt like at least us, the audience, like we saw the person going to set off the bomb. We saw the Coda person like, "Oh no, I'm not going to lose again," and set off a bomb. Like, so instead of like, "How'd you know?" Like maybe like, "How'd you react so quickly?" Because we all saw the bomb.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like the explosion came out of nowhere. We knew it was going to happen.
Yeah, Void's got some like extra sensorial reflexes or something as part of her powers, I guess. And she can see through time and space, right? So maybe she saw it a little earlier than everyone else or something, you know?
She said that she lived it already.
So that makes
She
sense.
does
Yeah.
explain it in the dialogue. She's like, I lived this already, and I've come back in time from when I failed to get us out of there in time. So I thought I had a dream about this, but no, I was just remembering it happening before. So when the setup happened again,
Yeah, this lends
time.
credence. I think last review you mentioned how Void was kind of almost like Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen. I kind of see it with this situation here.
Yeah. Yeah, they're trying to do that without being able to do it as effectively as Moore did it.
This shot of the inside of the ship gave me just a slight bit of X-Men nostalgia, I would say, because I mean, I've seen this shot many times with Jim Lee working on X-Men, and then before that, Uncanny X-Men, and just, you know, it reminded me how much, you know, although we've got a brand new team and a new company with Image and stuff like that, a lot of these tropes that he's using definitely stem from his work on X-Men. He's taken a lot of stuff from that and just throwing it in here with some different character designs. You know, I'm looking at this and I
I mean, this is clearly, you know, this Cyclops here just taking control of the ship.
I was going to say Spartan is Cyclops, you know, Warblade is Wolverine. You know, Voodoo is almost like the Kitty Pryde when she's first introduced, Shadowcat when she's first introduced to the X-Men, right? The character who doesn't know anything about them and discovers along with the reader. And just this simple effect of Maul kind of
that's a nice touch.
A little bit smaller,
down.
A nice little detail. Yeah. And again, the background, the technology, the roof of the ship and stuff, I think just looks awesome.
Yeah. Grifter would be his new Gambit.
Yeah.
And Voodoo and Zealot are kind of a split of Psylocke, of Zealot being the combative warrior half and Voodoo kind of having the power half, but very much personality-wise, the Kitty Pryde. Totally right on that.
Yeah, she's the you know, introduction to the Wildcats character, right? She's the character just like us who doesn't know what's going on. She often says it. She's like, I'm just not quite sure what's going on. You know? That's kind of her dialogue.
Okay, we'll explain it to you.
Yeah, so that the reader can be clued in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I see where Void is explaining all this. The moment was a timeline nexus from what I thought was a dream. Yeah, all these not made up words, but made up concepts, I guess. It's just kind of, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes just the word order makes it more confusing.
Yeah.
It's very much like there's, again, just have an editor. Someone could really improve this. Oh, back to the standard. Yeah.
So this is another quite heavy in the exposition page, right? A lot of stuff to read.
Yeah.
Visually, I think the ship that we saw in issue 1, the shot of it here over the city just looks awesome. We've talked about how Jim Lee is really good at the tech. I feel like in around this point, he's discovered manga for sure. Probably earlier on when he was working on X-Men 2. So you can see a little bit of the manga influence, I feel like, in the technology and the ship's design, which is great. Like, I think manga really excels at that kind of stuff. So why not take from it? Another little detail I liked was art-wise, Spartan down here and this kind of, earpiece microphone apparatus that he's got on looks really cool and kind of almost goes right into his eye, almost like Clockwork Orange style, right? Like that scene where they're keeping his eyes open.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Just something cool about that design. Jim Lee's tech, I always thought was really on point and really cool looking.
Yeah. So story-wise, where this page is very weird, I don't know if they previously said what IO stands for. I'm guessing intelligence operations or intelligence operative, but that was one they should have pointed out. But Voodoo makes the point if she's like, they're looking at the explosion and she's like, oh my gosh, the club, because she worked there.
Yeah.
And they're just like, what are you worrying about? Like, you're fine, chill out. It's like instead of addressing like, yeah, she probably knows the people that just got blown up in that, at least some of them. Like, she might not like all of them, but she's a young person who had connections to this place, and they just don't they don't like address it at all. No one's like, oh yeah, you had friends down there.
Yeah,
Shoot.
They just kind of brush it aside real quick and move on with kind of their mission, right? And yeah, not realizing this girl here knows nothing about you guys and your mission and the military and IO. So that's not her world. Her world is what's just been blown to bits, basically. Right? And that visual cue of her, like with the tear and stuff, is kind of funny because this is about the only kind of shot that we see of her, feeling some sort of emotion about it. And then boom, we just kind of move on, right?
Yeah, very much. And then the story goes into Spartan saying that the ship took shrapnel from the explosion because Void was literally just trying to teleport them from the ground where the explosion's happening up to the ship that's above, that was hovering above, but they got diverted somewhere far over to this base and then back. But he says, oh, the ship can't make it. Why did they need a ship in the first place? Like, why didn't Void just teleport them there in the first place and then teleport them out?
You can assume that she can teleport anywhere on Earth, really, right? We've seen her do it before in issue 1, and even this kind of side teleportation into the IO offices, right? That I'm assuming they were pretty far away, right? So she can cover those distances.
Yeah. So because they don't establish limitations, any sort of power level, it really leaves there's no explanation for why this power isn't being used. Like, why didn't she just teleport everybody back now or teleport the ship and everything? Like, why is the ship even crucial to them? Because they have a teleporter. I mean, if they had a limitation set up of like, she teleported them and then show her exhausted or show maybe part of her missing, like an arm being gone and like, oh yeah, she's got to get her energy back.
Got to regenerate. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, give us some kind of visual cue so we understand why the fact that the ship is damaged is an issue. Because you have a teleporter, it feels like it shouldn't be an issue.
That would seem to be the whole point of the teleporter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Save millions, if not billions of dollars by not having this super high-tech, ship that they're using.
Yeah, in Star Trek, they would always beam down to the planet, but usually they would get stuck and they would explain because there would be like a storm where they couldn't get signal or they were like underground and something was blocking it or they'd lose the device. They would give in the story a reason they can't just teleport back out.
Yeah.
And they fail to establish that here. So it really bugs me.
Well,
it just
one of the
breaks
many
down. Like, I don't understand why there's an issue here because you have this teleporter and I have no reason to think she can't just get you all home right now.
She seems pretty powerful. And like you said, there's no limitation that's been set. So,
yeah. Yeah, very much. I just think should have like like I said, like an arm or something missing, or maybe have her be a lighter color where, or like put dots in so she's almost sort of phasing out. Pieces are missing. Something. Give us
Yeah, yeah,
something.
absolutely. So next page, we've got we're back at the IO, for lack of a better term, office, I guess, or headquarters.
Yeah.
I liked the quick small panel to establish the building, cropped really tight, but you got just enough information there. Some
Mhm.
sort of highly technological building. I think it looks really good. Once again, in line with Jim Lee's ability with technology, and I really like this second panel here. The fact that it's fully kind of in negative space. You've kind of got the floor
Mhm.
plan and the characters on top of it, and then negative space behind it. I think that works really well when you're going to be adding a lot of dialogue like we have in this panel here. Here's an area where I feel like the space management works really well with the dialogue, and it doesn't become kind of overcrowded.
Yeah. Also, the fact that these are psionic operatives who are reaching out with their mind. The fact that they have a room that's sort of void
Yeah,
of interference, it
definitely. Yeah,
works. It connects well with me to what they're doing in the story. You do see where the letterer creates a frame by having the word balloons be straight at the top,
the
and
flat
even that
line. Yeah,
corner one. Yeah, I agree with you. I think visually it works really well, and the negative space is awesome, and it felt right to me looking at
as
it,
a,
reading it.
yeah, as opposed to the stuff we saw in Youngblood and a lot of the problems with the lettering there. I think there's more
Mhm.
thought and care put into the lettering in Wildcats than what we saw in Youngblood, at least in those early issues.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though sometimes they get pretty wordy.
Yeah, if they just had an editor in there cutting out some of the extra verbiage you don't need, or where people are repeating things, it'd be a smoother read, which would make it more enjoyable. And if because it's a bit of a slog, that's its real problem is they weigh it down with unnecessary words.
Yeah, that's the big negative in this issue, I guess. We talked about
Yeah.
before how the art is amazing, but yeah, there's just a lot of dialogue and technical mumbo jumbo that's like iffy, like you said, kind of
Mhm.
in between real military speak and then, the made up kind of street stuff that they're trying to mix into there.
Oh man, I like that last panel where they close in on Lynch's face and give us the close up of what's probably a cybernetic eye. But I do wish they got the scar in there. Even though it's a small area, like you just got the scar at the top and bottom.
At least a bit of it, right? Just to reinforce
Mhm.
the fact that it's him. Yeah.
Yeah,
Those little visual cues are very important.
yeah,
Uh
absolutely.
Next page, what do we got? So yeah, this is when we get to about this point is where I start to get a little bit disappointed, where I'm like, man, there is a lot of dialogue in these pages. And once again,
Yeah.
really well laid out for the amount of text that there is, not obscuring the
Mhm.
art too much, but just way too much to read in my mind.
Way too much. And a lot of the first part of it is unnecessary. I mean, they're trying to create the buddy relationship and show you the people working together. But these first three panels, most of it is unnecessary speech where you could cut it down to show their teamwork. Hey, Mo, you got to lift this thing. Hey, I could get bigger and lift it easier. Yeah, but then you get dumb. And since you're a tech guy, I kind of need you helping out. So they have a and then Warblade's like, nah, he could grow at least another 12 feet and not forget his name. So I mean that's kind of fun, but just say it efficiently. Maybe maybe pick one of these points to make and don't try to make all of them. Because
And
yeah, it's exhausting looking at all these words and they
and
give you so little.
the fact that Maul gets dumber as he gets bigger, but I guess smarter as he gets more into his normal human esque
Mhm.
proportions.
Yeah,
We haven't seen him yet in his kind of just normal, human mode. And I know
yeah.
later on it's going to be established that he's a fairly bright guy, like you said, some sort of scientist or technological kind of guy. But at this point, we have no idea of that. It hasn't really been mentioned, I don't think, at this point yet. So how smart and how dumb he actually is a little bit relative and kind of murky. We're not quite sure what his starting point is, right?
Yes, absolutely. And so that the I like that they have the buddy thing, but it'd be great if they cut it down because then they start getting into explaining what this whole adventure is about, with the Daemonites trying to establish a portal, and they're very close. And there's a back and forth between basically Zealot and Imp of kind of bringing the teams together. It is odd that the four of them meet to talk about it, and they just leave the three other people out of the conversation when
Yeah.
no need to leave them out. They could just all be discussing this together. Also, another small little note is I thought it was interesting, weird that Spartan is working shirtless. Like he's a guy and it's like, oh shoot, I'm going to be sweating. So he takes his shirt off, but it's like, he's an android. So
He's a synthetic being. So yeah, I don't think he sweats, right? Or
yeah,
maybe,
they do this several times in the scene.
Yeah.
And like, if you think back to Star Trek: The Next Generation, which I think is a big influence on Jim Lee, this is, I'm forgetting the name of the android at the moment.
Data.
Data. Yeah. Thank you. And it's like Data never like, he was always looking to be human, but it was always through his learning of ideas, emotions about music and art. It wasn't but he never like took his shirt off and walked around flexing, it's just,
Yeah, it wasn't one ego, I guess, wasn't what he was after when it came to wanting to be human, right? One thing I like, last thing about this page is just artistically, I think it's not a huge action-packed moment, and I think the storytelling is really cool all the way through. That they're fixing the ship, they're working on it. He's wiping his hands. Everyone's kind of doing something in those first few panels, and I really think that works well storytelling-wise. Just have those little beats of them doing those little actions there. So this next page to me kind of introduces the hugely expositional section of this book. I feel like Jim Lee's probably figured out, well, hey, we really need to be a little bit more precise and concise about what is actually going on and what the conflict is. So I feel like this is kind of the part where he starts setting that up here. And art-wise, again, I think, it's not a particularly action-packed sequence, obviously, just a bunch of characters talking, but Jim Lee's very adept at varying the angles and giving us some cool-looking drawings. Because the book laid out the next two pages like this, it's maybe a little bit more obvious than on the PDF, but he tends to draw Voodoo in very kind of submissive positions. It's a weird kind of thing. She's always kind of on her knees, and I'll just kind of leave it at that, but it's just kind of an odd choice, I guess, maybe to show her, again, being kind of vulnerable and not knowing what's going on visually. Just kind of an odd choice to me that she'd always be kind of down on her knees like that.
Yeah, she could be in a chair holding herself like this to look vulnerable.
Right? There's other ways of depicting it.
I mean, I guess it's like you could take the stripper out of the club, but you can't. It's like, hey, you're not on the clock. You don't have to keep posing all the time. Sorry, I was so frazzled. I just went back into my instinctual
submissive stripper pose. Yeah, it'd be funny if Emp was just kind of throwing dollar bills every few panels, while smoking on a cigar.
Yeah, but I mean, this page and the one that follows, like the long panels, it's a great 2 pages back to back.
I like the composition there. It looks really cool together.
Yeah,
really works well as not literally a double page splash, but just kind of as a sequence.
Yeah. No, I think he did a great job with that. The one thing that is quirky weird about it is they're talking about a mole there's got to be a mole, like this giant project. And it does make sense what they're trying to lay out. And Voodoo being one of the gifted, one of the half-breeds who's able to see the Daemonites when they've possessed somebody. And so it's cool they set up that like Grifter and Zealot were looking for these half-breeds, like people who are able to see the Daemonites because they want to figure out who the mole is. Like, okay, great plot point. And that's why they were tracking Voodoo, because she's one of those people. Okay, great. And then she's looking at the television like, there he is. And that's a little quirky in that it's kind of easy to understand if you're looking at the person like physically in front of you, that you see this soul, this creature, whatever that's possessed it inside. It's a little weirder to think that you can still see that
through the TV.
Yeah. It'd be like if you looked at a picture of the person, like Oh yeah, this is the guy. I can, like, even in the picture, is there an echo?
Yeah, like if someone does a caricature of that person, can you look at that drawing and see that they're possessed? Yeah, it's a little odd. It's a little odd.
Yeah. Yeah, if there was some kind of visual psychic emanation coming off of him that she could see that the rest couldn't, but then does a camera pick that up? You know, because it's not her picking it up. It'd still have to be the camera would somehow have to pick up whatever this thing is that she can see. And then,
Absolutely.
so I understand why they do it to advance the story.
Yeah.
But it'd
It's
be
it,
a lot. Yeah, there's got
it's
to
a
be a
thing.
better way.
It's a thing of convenience, I guess, in this case. And probably just once they kind of came up with that, it's like, all right, let's go with it and move on. I do like the depiction of Dan Quayle here. I feel like Jim Lee's probably using a little bit of photo reference here. And
Yeah.
I do listen, Dan Quayle is a long time ago when I was a kid, but I do remember him and
Hmm.
seeing him on the news and stuff. And that's a pretty close depiction of him, of what he actually looks like. Um, the next page
Hmm.
I wanted to just point out this is actually the first time I really noticed this, but on the screens back here, we got some interesting, fun little cameos. We got Batman at the top here.
Oh,
Um, and I assume this is Dan Quayle and this is Dan Quayle again. We've got Stimpy from Ren and Stimpy at the bottom
oh,
here.
nice.
And this one here, kind of a callback to the X-Men days. You got Wolverine and Magneto.
Oh, oh man, even at the bigger size, that's
Oh, it's tiny. Yeah, if you look
yeah,
at it in the book, though, it should be pretty obvious. Fun little callbacks there.
yeah. No, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. And again, there's Voodoo in that submissive position.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is basically the point where they're going to give it to you. They're going to explain what the conflict is, what the Wildcats are doing, filling the reader in just like they're filling in Voodoo on what's going on here. Because, she's her dialogue. I'd like to believe you. I mean, you all did save my life tonight. It's just, I don't understand what all this is about. And that right there at the bottom, that dialogue encapsulates what the reader is thinking at this point, too, I think.
Yeah, and then Grifter having the great line of like, then it's time you found out, but that's not accurate. It's really accurate to say, well, yeah, we should explain
Yeah,
because it's
exactly.
not like you're going to go on a journey and find out and
Yeah.
like discover it for yourself. They're just going to lay it out. If you want to change the next page, they do just completely get into a breakdown of what the conflict is. And it's so much like, I mean, you can see Jim Lee's influences. It's obviously the Transformers, it's the Autobots versus the Decepticons who are on the ship that crashed on Earth, and now they're having a war on Earth trying to get back to their home world. You can very much see his Star Trek influence. I mean, you've got Terminator 2 Wolverine, you've got Void, which is female Dr. Manhattan, but with emotions. But their explanation here, there's a lot in it that's pretty quirky. In addition to the Autobot Decepticon, clear that using that plot, but they don't seem to have locked down yet who Lord Imp is, because in the flashback they show that Zealot and Imp, they arrived here together. They were like side by side. And then obviously they got separated. He lost his memories. He's just been learning who he is again. But as he's been taught about the conflict, because I'm not sure if he actually got his memories back or if Void's just been teaching him, like,
Yeah.
hey, this is who you are. Here's what's going on, rather than memory actually coming back. So it seems like he has a lot of blanks still, because when he met Zealot, he had no idea who she was. He had to re-meet her, even though she's explaining to him right now, and she's explaining to Voodoo, but Imp, as she's explaining, Imp should be going, oh my God, we knew each other all the way back then?
Yeah, it's
Gee.
also being explained to him as well, right?
Yeah, this
Because I
is,
always I always felt that second option that you mentioned is what's going on more so, where it's Emp being told about his past and what happened rather than him actually remembering.
yeah, which really kind of means you don't really need Voodoo to be this point of view character,
You've
because
got Emp.
Zealot could just be
Yeah.
going, hey, Lord Imp, I know, you're kind of on this mission, but here's extra details that you've forgotten. He could be sitting there going, wow. yeah, I can't believe we arrived here together and we used to work together, and then I don't know what happened, but obviously I lost all of this and I'm just regaining
as
who I
as he
am.
as he should be with what they've already kind of established story wise. Yeah, he should be just kind of as intrigued or astonished as Voodoo is, right? And that's not really the case on this page.
Yeah. And then they don't seem to have his characterization down. I was telling you about this, but the way that they introduce him, he's very much talking like he's Bilbo Baggins in a way, like the guy who's just sitting at home, who has great potential that someone else sees in him, and he's learning his potential. That's how they present him.
Yeah.
But really, and maybe this is a change in what he becomes, as Lord Imp, he's much more Aragorn, like a guy who was up here, fell, walked away from it, and is coming back to who he was. And I just don't think they established that characterization very well.
We definitely don't get a sense of that. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And as for the conflict too, you mentioned a lot of those influences. I feel like there's a little bit too of, again, some of that X-Men baggage. So there's a bit of aspects of this whole conflict to me that kind of mirror the Shi'ar Empire and Lilandra and all those characters from space and X-Men, and also a lot of the Brood, right? The fact
Yeah.
that these characters are being taken over by these Daemonite, demon-esque kind of monstrous aliens is very, very similar to the Brood, which in turn is very much inspired by Alien and Aliens, right?
Yeah. Similar.
Similar, yeah. Because you're mentioning
No, it's like you've literally just carried the exact stuff over.
It's pretty much, it's pretty much the same. And when you were mentioning earlier about Spartan and his synthetic kind of origins and what he actually is, to me, once we see him being a little bit battle damaged and you see the visual of that, I feel like it really does reflect a lot on the synthetic beings from Alien and Aliens, right? When they get cut up and beaten up, a lot of that visual representation is very similar to me. It's almost a Geiger-esque kind of look to the damage on Spartan when he does get damaged.
Yeah, the next page is interesting.
So I'll just mention that they introduced the next sequence down here with this panel here. And there was something I wanted to mention. They don't actually mention it there. They mention it a little bit later. So I'll just switch page there.
Yeah, they're kind of going and talking to their Scotty, or the next generation version of the guy who runs the ship. And so it's another Daemonite who's gotten into the form of a human, and he's on a military base, and he's the guy who's the engineer who's putting together this whole system that's going to open a portal from Earth back to the home world. That's what they're trying to accomplish. And this page explains a lot, actually. There's actually a lot of good details where, again, if they just had somebody express stuff better, because the idea is there. What they explain here is that this orb that they're going after, it's basically like dragon eggs. Like in a fantasy story where wizards try to get their hands on dragon eggs because there's untapped power in there that they can utilize in huge spells before the dragon's born. Void is a Void and Providence, which is the character we met briefly in the previous issue, are effectively those. They came from these orbs and then grew into these beings with a personality. So the orb they're going after is just one of them, but before it's hatched. So they don't express it well, but that's what they're explaining on this page.
And it's basically like a plot contrivance too, where it's like if you have the orb, you win, right? That's basically what it is.
Yeah, and they also establish power levels. Like Providence is not powerful enough. Void is more powerful than her, but still not enough energy to fuel this gate. But this untapped orb would be. So it's neat. I wish they explained it better.
The idea is good, but yeah, it's not. They didn't get it across quite as clearly as they should have.
Yeah, and I like that they have multiple moles. Effectively, like here's a Daemonite in a position working on the base to create this thing, and they've been pulling it off as some sort of a government project, and they mentioned in place to keep it quiet.
They mentioned that the mole was the one who was able to get the financing for this building that they're in right now, this facility. So that would be obviously Dan Quayle, who's been taken over by Damon Knight.
Yeah.
I just want to mention Pike again because I just,
Mhm.
you know, there's a lot of stuff in Wildcats that's a little bit of derivative of other stuff, but man, you know, sort of calling him, you know, Dead Hard or Die Pool or something like that. Like
Uh-huh.
he, to me, he really feels like a mix of Die Hard and Deadpool, kind of, you know. I Jim Lee has to be aware of Rob Liefeld's designs, you know, and of characters like Deadpool and Die Hard. So I find it weird that he would kind of design a character that looks so much like both of them. It's just kind of a pet peeve of mine, kind of annoying.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah. The Damon, not the Damon, the Dakota assassin though, with the two giant spears out the back. I mean,
Yeah.
that's gotta be a pain when you're walking around.
That's a very Rob Liefeld-esque design too, in a way, right? Where Liefeld always has handles or guns or something kind of coming out the back there.
Yeah. Anyway.
I remember like some issues. I think it's I forget what the crossover was, Fall of the Mutants or something,
Uh,
where it's early on when Cable was introduced, and Rob Liefeld just never really drew him from the back angle. So there's another artist who I feel like, I think it's John Bogdanov, he draws Cable from the back, and it's the first time I've ever seen where those things go, and it just, funnily enough, just goes right into his back. There's not like a holster or anything. It's just these two pipes sticking out of his back, and just so odd.
uh,
You know, it's probably comes from the fact that Rob Liefeld often draws from the same angles and stuff, and rarely draws characters from the back, right? So I guess the artist was going through all the Cable art from Rob Liefeld and said, "Man, he's never really, you know, shown a depiction of what that looks like. So I'm just gonna have him kind of jutting straight out of his back." And I always thought that was just kind of funny.
yeah. That would be kind of like the video games. If you play a lot of video games where characters grab stuff and then they just kind of put it under their cloak, but realistically, like all this gear would just be stacking up back there, and the cape would be.
Yeah, the cape would be puffed up, and the character would look a lot bigger than he should. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's also, you know, a little bit of comic book magic, I guess.
Yeah. This page is they jump into a training sequence, very much like they would, do in the X-Men, where they'd go into the was it the danger
Danger
room?
room. Yeah.
To do training. But it's very random. I mean, it's two of the guys who know each other battling against Zealot, who they just met, and her kind of showing them up a bit. There's some stuff that doesn't make sense. Like Warblade here, obviously stretching out his blades, and then she's like, "Oh no, now you're too close to be able to use your abilities, which allows me to do this." And it's like, yeah, but he could just pop blades out. Like, there's no too close. He could just spike out.
Sure.
It's not a good way of trying to show a limitation in his power. It's illogical. Again, we get Spartan, who's now shirtless and has a towel because, yeah, I've been working so hard. It's like, you're a synth android. You'd have some sort of cooling system. You wouldn't need to take your shirt off. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I do like that they're having, while they're doing their battle, the Razor unit that's coming in is getting into position, and they're talking, and that's going on while they're battling. And then they get to a point where Zealot goes, "Wait a minute. Something's going on. Everybody, we're about to get attacked."
Yeah. I think this panel here is kind of funny, where Zealot and Maul are up close. Out of context, that could look a little different with the sweat and stuff. A little problematic, maybe.
Well, it's also ridiculous that, I mean, he's this giant being who's got her wrapped up in a humongous arm that covers her almost entire torso. And then when she decides, no, let go of me, she suddenly springs out with a kick. And it's like, I mean, at some point, it's just, how would she maneuver the kick?
How would you get any leverage to be able to, yeah.
Yeah. But the shot itself is gorgeous. Use the negative space around it.
Really cool.
Yeah. Just as an open panel, negative space, the pose, all that's fantastic. Just wish they got there differently.
And the letter is still kind of using the word balloon here, the phylactery, as kind of a framing device, even though we don't actually get an actual frame to the panel. Looks really cool.
Yeah.
Gives us kind of a makeshift corner.
Go back. Actually, they have a hilarious. So again, the military that's using this cool slang stuff. And the military does do that. They do name things, fun stuff. Like in some ways, the military tries to keep things fun, keep you engaged. But it's really funny that they call what they're about to do a hop and pop. Like, we're going to hop in and pop them. Hop in and pop, pop, pop. They're like,
Yeah.
hop and pop. That's too far. That one is.
It's a little bit too much for you, eh?
Yeah, it's too ridiculous. Yeah.
So the IO guys busting in here. I do like the designs for the soldiers here in their costumes. I feel like there's a bit of modern and a bit of old school to it. There's something in the visor designs that I feel is slightly kind of Jack Kirby-esque, which I really like. And later on, we'll see like a silhouette where maybe it's a little bit more obvious. But I think I really like the designs of their helmet specifically. There's something cool about it there. And it helps to differentiate each character. He does give them all kind of a slightly different design, which I think is good as well.
Yeah, no, I do think that's good. And you can get a sense of who's the actual psychic operative by their gear, because it's far more based around their helmet to effectively, I don't know, focus or increase their power.
Sure.
At that top panel, those little cut-ins to create action lines, I like that. I like the explosion. The only thing I really don't like about this page and the following page, oh, actually, I guess it's really just this page, is the characters are describing the action as being very overwhelming, but we're not really seeing that. We see them jump in, and what I would have liked to have seen differently is when they come in, they're immediately firing, and there's all these bursting shots coming at the characters, and the characters having to scramble rather than this pause moment.
Yeah, like being affected by that, whatever action or shooting of weapons or throwing of energy. Even if we got like Maul getting hit in the face or something and kind of reacting to it. It's where the dialogue and the visuals don't necessarily match up, right?
Yeah, they don't connect. So if they came in and they were shooting, and Maul's a great use. If he was huge and just taking shots and they were scrambling behind him, because their goal in this immediate action is to distract the team, to have them not able to react. So the psionics that they're bringing in can then focus on Void and take her out because she's the most powerful and they need to knock her out. So yeah, there's a real disconnect, like you're saying, between the verbiage and the picture. And
it's like the dialogue is on this page, and really what the dialogue is describing is more so what we get pretty much on this page here, the double page splash, the first kind of quick vertical panel of Void getting shot at. And then I would pretty much still describe this as a double page splash, but we get a really cool piece of art for sure here. I do like kind of the effect of this panel and all the action stuff that's going on. I think it's very successful, very pretty artwork. Maul kind of the background element, but still coming at us toward us in the foreground with some of that foreshortening of his hands and stuff. Yeah, just a really cool piece of art. Some good poster art.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous piece of art. I think the one big flaw is when they have this one psionicist come in and attacks Void, which I like how it's done with the white space and whatnot, but she's been described as so powerful that they should give a full splash page to it and have had multiple psionists like just come in. They arrive from all angles. You could white space this. They're all blasting her. So like have her overwhelmed like 5-6 people, showing one person take her out, even by surprise, with how much they're talking about her being powerful. It betrays it. Like it's you've said how powerful she is, and then just this one guy takes her out.
And it kind of goes against what we know about her from previously in the issue, or even the end of last issue when the explosion happens, and she kind of is quick enough to avoid an explosion happening, right, or them being affected by the explosion, teleporting out. But
that one she actually had a memory from a past timeline.
But why would
she timeline, and then she was having visions of that event. So when the event happened again, she was able to react faster. In this case, it's a new event because this is a different timeline now.
Oh, okay.
That part makes sense. It's just her power level. They've built it up. This PsyOps team have talked about it, but then they don't pay it off because just one guy takes her out. And so visually, it doesn't match up. Again, splash page, have her surrounded, 5-6 Psionists, all blasting her at once, knocking her out before she can react. I would be much more effective.
Absolutely.
The rest of the page, I totally agree with you. I love. I mean, it's a great action shot. You got Grifter. He doesn't have any blast though, so it's a little silly that he's.
It's a little odd that he's not actually shooting. Yeah.
Need some blast effects going off. Zealot punches a guy, but really throw a sword in her hand or have her, have those blades from the back. If she is coming up with one of those, would be more fun and exciting. You'd think Maul. Yeah, I mean, he works as the set piece, even though I'm looking at him thinking if he just keeps growing, he would just knock these guys out. But it is pretty.
Maybe he'd get too dumb, though.
It's super pretty, though. This one does do what they're talking about. Like you said, you can see the blast coming down from above. So the team has jumped in and there are those blasts in the background. Yeah. So if the dialogue from the previous page, I think the problem is they commit too much space to the jump in. So they need a smaller panel of the guys crashing in and then jump into this action much quicker and have them saying what they were saying on the previous page during this. It would
have the dialogue over this page here. Yeah, there'd be much more of a connection between words and pictures. I wanted to talk about the coloring again real quick, because I do feel like this is just a beautiful page with, again, that early image coloring that already, is clearly light years away from what Marvel and DC were doing at this time, but not yet too kind of gaudy or decorative or just a little over the top as it would become maybe in the next couple of years for Image. So just a nice balance of color here, a little bit of light reflection on the contour here with Maul, all those little details, the kind of almost Kirby Crackle kind of red coloring on this guy's gloves and stuff. I just think it looks really cool. Just a nice, perfect balance in the computer coloring of the early Image stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Very pretty.
So more action going on here. I always thought that shot of Grifter was a little goofy to me. Like it's almost more kind of a Spider-Man pose, right? And the fact that he's shooting behind his head, like he's such a precise sharpshooter that he can just do that. It's kind of funny to me. It's almost like it's almost like he's washing his hair or something. But it's the same as when you see gangsters holding the gun sideways and stuff, where it looks cool, but practically in real life doesn't really. I don't think that would work. I don't think anyone in the military would even attempt in this kind of situation to shoot a gun like that. And another weird sequence that, just kind of has me asking more questions is this panel of voodoo here, where I guess they're trying to say that there's some sort of other hidden powers within her that we're not yet aware of, which is kind of a nice way to introduce it. These weird kind of abstract, lack of a better term, black lightning bolts, I kind of like to give her almost like that very kind of rabid fury, I guess, that he's trying to get across here. All the shadow that he's thrown on her to make her look way more menacing than she has been up at this point, which is she has not been at all, right? She's kind of vulnerable as a character. And I noticed this detail too, where her glove takes on like this weird furry appearance here, where I had to look back and go back and look at her. Basically, so
it's not her glove; it's her Daemonite origin coming out.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, it's half Daemonite. So this is like her. It's like the mutant power coming out in a moment of stress, where suddenly this extra power, she literally transforms for a second, and the Daemonite comes out, and that's where she gets this claw and this. I don't think it's fur, but this monstrous look to her arm. Okay. So it's not well established. It's
that's
what's happening actually makes sense, but they do not explain it well.
Yeah, because this is kind of the first time we see her kind of, in this kind of state. So I just thought it was weird visually to add the fur there because, color wise, I do feel like it's coming off of her glove there. So I was just like, I went back and looked because she does have fur on her costume somewhere. I forget the boots, I think. So I was like, was that there before, or is that just coming out as a representation, like you said, of her Daemonite origins? I wasn't quite sure. But
Yeah,
a cool looking panel. Honestly, I think it's just really successful in getting her kind of quick, rabid fury out. Makes it look good.
yeah, they would need a follow-up panel where, say, Zealot, for instance, reacts to like, oh yes, this is more of her potential. This is why we were looking for people like her.
Yeah.
They they do talk about this at one point where they say Grifter and Zealot have been looking for people like her,
Yeah.
but yet this is where I think the book could have had a better division of the teams in the beginning in the first issue, because if Zealot and Grifter were on this mission looking for these mixed bloods, it would be way cooler if they had found Maul and Warblade and had them with them. And so in issue 1, you could have had Spartan and Void and Imp show up to try to grab Voodoo, and then have this alternate team where there's Grifter is like the first guy going in, and then Maul and Warblade and Zealot could all show up together, because it doesn't make sense that Zealot's explaining we've been searching for them, but meanwhile, Imp's made no mention of searching for them, but yet he's found them. He's got a team of a couple of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Story-wise, there's a breakdown again.
I'm just going to mention, I keep saying her costume, but really, it's her stripper gear that she's still in, right?
Which is a costume, yes, but it's not her heroic costume. She just hadn't had a chance to change. I do kind of like that on that page, when the battle starts, Imp isn't commanding, and so Grifter's like, oh geez, this guy can't run anything, I got to take over, and starts to try to give orders, but really this should be Spartan's spot. Spartan should be the one leading the team, and we don't see Maul or Warblade do anything. I mean, literally the Razors jump in, we don't see them get knocked out, and we don't see them react and fight. This would have been a great space to have a bigger fight scene. Let us see Warblade use his powers and rip some guys up. So maybe, honestly, why waste space with the little training fight montage page?
And just throw them into this action sequence, because that's what they're there for, right? I think like Spartan, Maul, and Warblade are supposed to be the fighters, the warriors, right?
Yeah, so throw it into this. Let us see Warblade stretch out and do some fight moves there. Let us see Maul expand and, you know, crush a couple of these guys. Let Spartan give some orders. He's a synthetic. His brain, the second this information came in, should be like, you do this, you do this, you do this.
He's literally created for that, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But then Imp takes charge and shoots a guy's kneecap out and is like, yeah, if you take out my person, which would be really dumb of the PsyOps to take out Voodoo, because she can see the moles. And the PsyOps people seem to be on it. Like, they know some of the pieces of what's going on. So to threaten it, like, we'll take this person out, and like, yeah, but you need that asset. It would be dumb to destroy Voodoo. You know you need her.
Yeah.
It's a weird back and forth.
But the dialogue reaction to the getting shot in the knee was hilarious.
Yes.
Our holy mother of God. I don't know who would say that after getting shot through the knee. The R, maybe, like the I could understand that, but yeah, I don't know that anyone would have the wherewithal to just blurt out "Holy Mother of God."
Yeah, maybe if it was the next panel where he's rolling on the ground holding his knee, it would make a lot more sense.
It makes the panel kind of, you know, the impact of what's happening is made kind of funny and comedic in a weird way by that little bit of dialogue, right? Kind
that,
of,
and also the fact of Imp's posture, this like this cartoonish leg split, like he jumped back and took a shot rather than he's just standing there. It
highlights his midgety proportions also, which again kind of is more on the comedic side, I guess.
Yeah, I like Lynch's entrance is good. The black silhouette works great. If the battle just made a little more sense, they crash in, take out Void, surround them, and then go, okay, you see that I'm powerful. I'm here. Let's talk. You've got pieces. I've got pieces. We need to put this together.
Yeah, it's a nice dramatic reintroduction of Lynch here near the end of the issue. I do agree. Looks really cool. And down here, you see the soldiers are all done kind of in a very contrasty, almost Frank Miller kind of thing, right? It's either black or white, or in this case, red with the coloring. And this is where I think when I was mentioning earlier, when you look at the helmets and the design and stuff, there's a little bit of a Kirby influence in the lines that I really like. There's just something about those mask designs I think look cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the back and forth between the two of them, the stare down.
Yeah, and he uses that same effect he used on the Zealot panel earlier on, right, to kind of draw emphasis to the center. I think that looks pretty cool.
Yeah, and then there's a kind of an info dump as they're going back and forth, but the whole page is setting up that they don't trust each other, but they're in a situation where they really need to work together. And this time it makes sense that the warriors are separated and are having to sit in a room together while the two leaders are discussing. It really makes sense in this scene versus where it didn't make sense in the previous one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they're really in this. It's just a whole bunch of like a machismo back and forth. I got this. I got this. I don't trust you. Where I feel like it would be a better situation of them like, all right, let's come together on this one. You know, I kind of already knew about your organization. Yeah, I've been keeping tabs on you. What have you got? What have you got? I mean, the end of the world could be coming. We need to put cards on the table here, I think would be a better dialogue. And they could get the information out rather than they're just getting style out.
Yeah, it's another one of those pages where I feel like it's very dialogue heavy, you know, it's a little bit of a slosh to read through. But even though the characters, not much action wise is going on, the art is really cool and the composition.
Art's gorgeous.
And the storytelling throughout, the different angles, just really well done. Really well done.
And they're doing that moody blue lighting that you were mentioning before.
Which I love.
Yeah.
You've almost got like these characters almost kind of blend together in the foreground here to separate from all the Wildcats. They kind of pop against them, even though they're still using some blue and purple elements, which are similar. There's still a separation between foreground and middle ground that I think works really well.
Yeah.
And I'm good. We're not on EMP anymore, but I've often talked about how, you know, Marvel got rid of characters who smoke. Always appreciate seeing characters smoke in comic books. Not, again, that I'm trying to encourage anyone to smoke, but I just think, you know, just like in real life, some people do smoke.
People smoke.
Yeah, you know, so to completely get rid of that is just odd to me, you know. I don't think that by drawing a character who's smoking, you're necessarily trying to encourage anyone to do so. It's just kind of a character trait of that character.
Yeah, I do kind of understand kids read these, so we don't want to put the idea in the kids' mind. I
guess, but then, you know, you've got tons of, you know, shots of even today. Wolverine doesn't smoke anymore, but he sure does drink a lot.
Yeah, he sure does beat up a lot of people.
Yeah, he tends to cut people up and make them bleed to death. You know, what's better, really?
What's the bigger issue?
Right? Yeah. So it's okay to, you know, encourage kids to run around with blades and cutting people, but not smoking.
Yeah. When you're running around with a knife, swinging at people, try not to have a cigarette. I do kind of like this page. This is a good plot page where, who's the Hellspawn?
Yeah.
Spawn has sent a couple of his enforcers to like, hey, go keep an eye on the vice president, which is their top mole, because we know there's going to be an attack coming. And Pike is kind of giving him an attitude like, hey, we're here for this and you need to accept this. And then this guy he's treating him like he's kind of a cheesy guy who's lucky to be in his position is this old Damonite lord who then comes out and goes, hey, man, you know, I don't forget who I am. Okay. I've been around here for a long time.
Yeah.
I put this together. I got myself into this position. I've organized this. Don't forget your place. And that is a good characterization of the other character. I'm sorry, what's Pike?
Yeah.
Pike being a tough guy who's just like, oh, I'm a rough and tumble guy. I'm a warrior. And then this much more powerful character going, yeah, okay, buddy. You might want to chill out.
Don't forget your place in all of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not what you think I am. Like, I know I'm walking around and handling things a certain way, but I'm actually pretty tough myself. I'm
It
playing this other role.
and the way he represents it visually too, to see Dan Quayle all of a sudden kind of morph into this, gross kind of alien texture on the arm here, and then we get that close up of the face.
Yeah.
It's all kind of melty and mangled and stuff. Is definitely some fun visuals for sure.
Yeah. And it's too bad that they didn't do a better job of expressing what happened with Voodoo, because effectively she had a similar moment where her Damonite origin came out, and that's where that attack came from. They just needed that reaction shot from a character so that you, the reader, would have understood what just happened.
Would have clued us in, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I like a lot about this page. And then he also mentions nonchalantly that, like, effectively he's got young blood coming to watch him. Like, I got people to watch me. He's calling in young blood, but he doesn't say that. He says he's got people, and then Pike kind of reacts like, "Oh no, not those guys! Like, they're going to be with their haircut than getting the job."
Which is good, because they didn't ruin the surprise for the end of the issue. And I remember as a kid, really being kind of blown away by what that surprise was. That Youngblood appeared at the end of this issue, and also in the next issue of Wildcats.
Yeah, Youngblood really made the rounds. They hit all the comics. So one issue with this jump, because we go from the team was having a training sequence, then they got attacked by the Razors, this intelligence operation, and then there's a back and forth one-upsmanship between Imp and Lynch. And again, if that sequence was better used to lay the cards on the table and set up that they need to make a joint operation, because like Lynch is like, hey, I'm on the inside, so there's certain things I can't do, but you guys can. Like, I can't go after the vice president, but I can help get you in there. If they would set that up, this would be a much better transition into this sequence where these guys are going through the tunnels and we don't really know where. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, they're at that same spot that the bad guys were at.
Yeah, that same government facility, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they could have actually set it up a little bit too with the way the Razors attacked, where the Wildcats were having their little sparring session, but there was those little communications coming from outside. During the page of the vice president with Pike and the code assassin walking, they could have had little communications like that going on in the background as well from the Wildcats, now that it's effectively flipped and they're the ones that are sneaking into position.
Yeah, and even just with the page turn, if there was just, adding to what you said about the last page, maybe setting this next scene up a little bit more with what's actually happening in the sequence, but to even just simply have at the top a little narration box saying the next day, later in that evening, or even establishing the NASA facility, that we saw before.
A picture reminding us of the facility. Yeah, they really could set this up.
The setup is a little, what's the word I'm looking? Maladroit is a French word.
It's clunky. A jump. That's the problem. Like, the story's here, and then suddenly we're here, and we don't really know how we got there.
There's no clear indication of it. Yeah.
That first panel, though, going over to the art side of the thing, the first panel reminds me very much of X-Men #1, when they were doing the training session to, like, try to get to Professor X. And there was like the one group fighting, and then there was another group that was going through the tunnel below that's like, oh, we're the second. It totally reminds me of that. And that was that was less than a year prior.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I've said it before. There's a lot of stuff in Wildcats that reminds me of the X-Men and the Uncanny X-Men run. Yeah. It's not like it's wholly original, right? Like a lot of the Image stuff.
Also funny that they're sneaking through a tunnel, but Maul still hasn't gone down to his actual regular size.
Yeah.
We've never seen him at just regular human proportion. He's always stayed beefed up to some extent.
Listen, personally, I think the first time we actually saw him in his human form, at least for me, was during Image X month when Larson did the Wildcats issue.
Oh, that's
the first time I could remember seeing him in kind of his human form, or whatever however you want to describe it there. I have a theory about Maul where you know, if you look at this first issue and second issue, he's almost inconsequential, even though he's supposed to be like a Hulk level strong guy and
Hmm.
you know, unbeatable or whatever. I feel that, you know, in the plot he doesn't matter much, but in the art he seems to take a lot of space, obviously
Uh-huh.
just from his size. But I
Yeah.
feel like, you know, Maul is Jim Lee's maybe one of his favorite characters.
Mm.
So in the art, it's always reflected that way. He's always there and he's always very big and
Hmm.
very prominent. He was prominent in
Hmm.
the last double page splash. He's very prominent here,
Yeah.
but he doesn't really affect the story much. So there's like a weird disconnect there. I just feel that Lee just really likes him and likes the design, likes drawing him, so he throws him in there as much as possible.
Yeah, I think it's either the next issue or the fourth issue, but he does have a moment where he gets gigantic and like takes down some bad guys. And but I completely hear what you're saying. Like if you stripped him out of these first two issues, it would really just create more space for maybe have Warblade and Spartan do some more, you know, establish them a little better.
Well,
Again, if
War,
the team started smaller and they found pieces along the way, it could
yeah,
help them up better.
I feel like Warblade almost suffers from the same thing. I mean, Spartan too, to a certain extent, but he still had a few things to do, right? Working on the
Yes.
ship, and
Oh
you
yeah.
know, he's been part of some conversations and all that.
Hmm.
But Warblade and Maul have been almost like, you know, as the plot goes, you know, ahead, they really don't have much effect on it. Not up until this point, at least.
Yeah, they really could have had just one of them in the comic and saved the other one for like series two, like another guy they go find because yeah, they just there's not enough for all of them to do.
And those tusks on his back, never been explained. Never
Yeah,
been explained.
just cool looking.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the image thing, right? It looks cool. And
Yeah.
you know, this whole big panel here, like kind of a double page panel,
Hmm.
looks really cool to me. Pike,
Yep.
you know, even though he's not my favorite character, I think like his positioning here is very cool.
Yeah.
His reaction to Maul busting in, just a really
Uh-huh.
cool image. And once again, well colored. I like the orange background that really makes everything else pop in the foreground. So
Yeah, and it is there is some good setup to the fact that Pike and the Code Assassins show up to say, "Hey, we're here to watch your back," and he goes, "Nah, I don't need you. I got Youngblood coming." And then immediately, bam! These guys bust through the wall. I'm like, oh, who looks like you do kind of need us. But then Maul comes in all big and bad, and then it's just immediately Pike pulls out a staff, and bam! Yeah, you just forget you, man. It's
yeah,
just yeah,
for all the power he's supposed to have, he gets, you know, he again he doesn't really have much effect on, you know, the people he's going up against in the conflict. You know, he's
yeah.
mostly there to get his ass handed to him, like
In
here
the
with
last
Mike,
scene, we saw a razor jump in through the ceiling with a power glove and punch him and knock him
and rip
back.
his shirt open, right? And that's a,
Yeah,
you know, he's always kind of, you know, being hit and not hitting back really.
yeah. It's very disappointing for him. Again, as you'll say on all, as we can say on all these, lovely page, great
Yeah,
layout, great setup. The colors going from this, you know, the tone down of the blue with the purple on top, and then going to this much brighter purple with the blast effect. It's all gorgeous.
yeah.
It
This is
just needs a story to match.
yeah, exactly. Well, again, I guess we're seeing what again Image was often accused of is you know
Hmm.
excuse me, flash over substance, right? So the art was always very solid. No one ever complained about the art really, but the story suffered because these were artists. Mostly, most of them were artists who were writing for the first time or had writing partners helping them
Yeah.
out. And you've mentioned this before. You know, instead of getting your friends to help you write, maybe you want to get an actual writer with experience, right? And that's well, Todd eventually did that for Spawn, but you know the Extreme Studios guys and Wildstorm guys just kept at it with they themselves and a few friends writing the books, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Oops,
Unfortunately.
excuse me. All right, so we see where that blast that hit Pike comes
Yeah.
from Spartan. So now we're starting to see Spartan in a more kind of proactive um, position here, which is going to get undercut really quick.
Yep. Yep. The very powerful cyborg immediately kicked by the code assassin, who then just rips his arm off. Just it's too much battle damage for too short of a sequence. And they keep undermining the power of the Wildcats. Maul, this giant guy, but he keeps just getting punched by everybody. And Spartan, your arm just came off. I mean, she didn't even like draw a blade and slice it off and then make a comment about the power of the blade, like it having something special, like a ceremony or something to make it this powerful. She just ripped his arm off. Like,
and that's like, it's undercutting the Wildcats, and it's giving her, you know, an insane kind of power level that she can just rip this, you know, cyborg's arm off.
yeah, it would make a lot more sense that Zealot did just kick free from Maul. Like, yeah, I may be tiny, but I'm actually secretly wildly strong.
That's it.
Yeah. But then Maul, then, though he was just knocked to the ground and was in a like defeated pose from this baton staff, just immediately jumps up. And now that's an awesome hit. You know, at least it's just a big, huge hit. Would have been cool if there was a sequence when he was on the floor looking defeated where they had a panel where he goes, just did the opposite, like he's on the ground, but then you see him just like gets bigger.
Yeah.
And then maybe powerful. Just has a moment of just like, not Maul smash, but something of like that, of just like, he's angry, he's not thinking very clearly, but he's had enough and he knows who the enemy is. He just gets bigger and just bam, bam. He should have hit both of them. Like panel, bam, hit that guy. Pike, bam, hit you. I'm not playing around anymore.
Yeah. I love like the pose that he's in and like the action and the punch that he throws. The position of what do they call the coda? Right. So this coda lady here, the fact that we kind of see her in between is just kind of funny to me. It almost looks like
you're always pointing this stuff out. Like,
my mind's in the gutter, dude.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? It looks like he's punching her in the vagina. That's
I mean, her legs are flailing. The only thing art-wise I would say about it is, and maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't, there's a lot of real estate taken up to establish the shot of Spartan, and then real estate for the kick and the arm cut. Would it be cooler if there was less real estate taken up by these lead-in panels and then have a bigger panel of Maul doing the smash?
100%, yeah. And kind of following it with where you've established those bigger panels with Maul early on in the story, right? We've already gotten 2. So maybe he was thinking this would be a bit of overkill, but I think that would have worked better as a moment. Absolutely. To once again, Maul's big, give him a big panel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also hilarious is her dropping the Spartan arm here, just kind of flailing in the air. Also, is that a cameo by Plastic Man? What is that?
No, she had a cape on.
Oh, but her cape
is very similar to Plastic Man's
design.
But it is, I see why you see that. What would have also been cool is if they had this bigger panel for Maul, but then if also, because she's being smashed against the edge of the panel, if the panel itself was breaking, so there was like debris coming off and the panel break, I think an emphasis more on this shot would have been a cool payoff from the moments leading up to it. And then you don't need as much space for this. Let me grab Dan Quayle by the throat. Which, with how big he is, it shouldn't be like I've got you by the. It should be like Maul's got him via the torso. Yeah, just like he should be holding him up, but like they need a bigger panel for this one because you need Maul to be big. You need a small face. You need to see the body of Quayle and a big hand just holding him by the torso. And then again, he could talk a bit dumber because he's gotten so big.
Yeah, because you've already established in the panel right before that he's pretty huge there. So is he constantly like getting bigger and shrinking down and getting bigger? You know, doesn't quite make sense there. One thing I will say, because we're looking at the PDF, we don't get the sense of this, but when you look at the actual book, I think it's kind of unfortunate that the Youngblood here is on the right-hand page. Would have been nice if that would have been on a page turn.
This would have been the perfect spot if they were going to throw that coupon into the book.
Yeah.
To have the coupon fall here and create that page turn. Or they needed to move. There was an ad earlier in the book. Like, they needed to do something so that you got the page turn reveal 100%.
Yeah, because I know with the double page splashes early on, and obviously if you start moving things around in those early pages, it's going to mess up your double page splashes. But yeah, maybe an extra ad or something here, and then you get the page turn, and it's a little bit more of a surprise reveal, because obviously when you're reading the book, you still got a whole page to read, but you've already seen what is the surprise at the end of the issue.
The other thing they maybe could have done was just flip-flop the last 2 pages, because you have Maul holding Dan Quayle, and on the final page, Maul says on a video screen, we got trouble. And then there's the other guy who's being, well, he was established in issue 1, who's now saying, all right, my pieces are in place. Here's the third guy. Like, here's these, well, there was 3 factions already, 2 of them that have joined forces to take down the Damonites. Now here's your other party saying, everything's in place. Now I'm going to make my move. Then it could have cut back to the final page turn of Youngblood popping in, which would pay off the, like, we got trouble line that Maul just had.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm looking at it now, and just flipping those 2 pages really wouldn't matter story-wise or create any kind of confusion, and it would have been a lot more effective with the surprise reveal of Youngblood. Yeah, absolutely. So since we're talking about it, let's actually look at the Youngblood page. This was just fun, obviously, as a kid to, again, every little moment in those early Image comics where you get a bit of crossover stuff going on was really fun. And this obviously was hinting at next issue being, much more than just a quick appearance by Youngblood, but there's going to be, a standoff between the Wildcats and Youngblood, who are, I guess, at this point, 2 of the premier Image teams, right? So makes total sense to have them cross over. And always cool to see, Jim Lee depicting other characters from other creators. I think he does a really good job on Youngblood, who I would have enjoyed a Youngblood book drawn by Jim Lee, of course. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, it's too bad that he doesn't have Photon instead of Combat, so that would line up a little better with the home team and away team as they were presented in the first issues.
Yeah, so I don't know how that
breaks. It'd be smoother.
Yeah, I don't know how that breaks down in the decision-making process. Was the decision made early on when Combat seemed to be part of the home team, but then in the book later shifted? So was Jim Lee, he started drawing this or something, and Rob was like, oh, well, no, he's on the other team. And Jim was just like, I've already drawn him. I don't want to go back. My daughter's crying for milk.
Spawn references Youngblood in the early days, just before the chapel thing, but references it. And then in Wildcats, Youngblood actually shows up, which in very story sense, like, makes perfect story sense, but they actually show up to have to battle the Wildcats because, hey, it's the vice president and the Youngblood home team would be
protected.
Yeah. And then in Savage Dragon, Badrock shows up trying to test Savage Dragon in issue 3 to see if he's tough enough to be a part of Youngblood. And I think the only ones that don't rep, so Cyberforce was supposed to have Badrock. He was actually supposed to show up in issue 3 rather than Pitt. It got switched out, which good switch. Shadowhawk. Do they have a Spawn shows up? Savage Dragon shows up. They mention Youngblood, but now they don't actually appear. So it's a lot of connections, though.
Yeah, this feels like the most impactful crossover early on in Image, in the sense that, like I said, we know that in issue 3 there's actually going to be a whole action sequence of conflict between Wildcats and the Youngblood members that we're seeing here, where in a lot of other appearances they were on screens, or they were on the news, or they were on TV, except for obviously that Badrock appearing in Savage Dragon, which I think is kind of weight-wise on the same level as Youngblood appearing in Wildcats here. But yeah, I mean, this is just beautiful artwork, not much going on, but he gets, the depiction of the characters right, I think, nothing too off-model and drawn in that Jim Lee style that works really well. And he's even, he's kind of used some of the Rob Liefeld quirks on Combat's hair and stuff. So yeah, this was, I was really jazzed about this as a kid, seeing this splash page. And then we're at the last page of the story.
Yeah. The actual last page, where Gnome, who we were introduced to before, and Gnome and Imp had their meeting. And so Gnome kind of gave Imp some info to get him moving along on the pathway. But meanwhile, Gnome was doing it for his own reasons, where it's like, I'm setting you over here so that you're in conflict with these guys, so that I can then sneak in while you guys are battling it out. I'll go grab the orb. So he did it all for his own sneaky purposes.
Yeah, and they're using this last page to introduce the triad, who we can see on the screens behind them. Kind of forgettable characters, right? I know they do play a big part in next issue, but I don't think they ever appeared past that. I don't remember them appearing.
Good visuals.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely got that 90s kind of aesthetic going. We'll get, bigger shots of them. We'll talk more about them when we review issue 3, obviously, but technically being introduced here for the first time. And like I said, they're going to have some impact on the next issue storyline, but not much more after that. And,
go ahead. Super cool shot though, with like Maul on the screen, the little shot of the Kota assassin speaking, but then this setup shot of having this smaller guy in his, like, kind of like command chair with all these buttons and knobs and switches and tubes coming in for some reasons, being fed power, information, I don't know, but it's cool looking, it's centralized, and then his long, lanky Kota assassin companion who's creating an edge, is framing him with her blades and all, and then the 3 screens in the background of like, oh, here come these 3 more bad guys that you're going to get introduced to next issue. Here's a cool shot of them, which is a little bit similar to Cyberforce 1, where it ends with like, oh, here come the bad guys. As a shot, I think it's gorgeous, and I do think it's a good way to introduce these guys at the end.
Yeah, and I mean, he's using that trope of the villain kind of sitting in his chair or his throne, right? We've seen Doctor Doom in this kind of position. We've seen Loki in this kind of position. It's one of my favorite type of shots. I've drawn them myself. There's just something about this shot of the guy kind of, crouched down and being all evil and stuff, sitting in his chair or his throne or however you want to describe it. That always kind of works. And obviously Jim Lee's a talented artist, so he's made it work really well here. With all the technological bits, like you said, the wiring, once again, the background, just, he's really not cheaping out on the technology and filling up the backgrounds nicely. Even in this quick shot of the Wildcats here, just that little bit of technology at the top there, just, goes a long way to evoking the environment that they're in. And just, again, just Jim Lee is a master of it, and it always looks awesome. All right, so that's it. I think for this issue, we do have the Wetworks preview, but we've talked about this in a prior video. If you guys want to go check out in the archives on the Will's Portasio video that we did, we talked about it. So
I'm guessing the PDF probably doesn't have the talent search in it, though.
Probably not. So we can definitely talk about that before we go.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I would have been too young for it.
This is what I'm talking about here.
I wish I hadn't been a jaded kid, because when I saw something like this, I wouldn't even think to respond to it. Like some kids might like say, show this to their parents and be like, hey, could I apply? And like try to submit and find out, like, well, you got to be 18 because you got to be able to move to California. But I would see something like this and just be like, never going to happen. Back when I was a kid, which is contrary to now that I'm a comedian, and like, okay, I got to go hit this festival and maybe I can get in here, and maybe if I do enough right things, this guy over here will notice me and give me a shot.
Well, whatever level you're at in your art at that point, it does take a lot of confidence, I think, to actually apply, because you're gonna, I'm sure I remember as a kid thinking, wow, man, there's a lot of people who are going to be applying for this talent search, right? Like probably guys who draw better than me, who are older than me, right? I'm in Canada, so I'm thinking the same kind of thing. It's like, man, the odds of someone, halfway across a continent being chosen, unless I'm really talented. And when this came out again, I was 11. So, still thinking realistically enough that no one's going to hire, no matter how talented, I don't think they would hire an 11-year-old unless I was the most amazing artist in the world. And I was smart enough to know that I wasn't, right? One guy who does get picked up, though, from this Homage Studio talent search is J. Scott Campbell.
Yeah.
This is what he applied to originally, and that's how he was discovered. I know he had some fan art published in Savage Dragon fairly early on, a shot of the dragon. You can see in one of those early Savage Dragon issues, but yeah, this is where they discovered him. He had also entered a Nintendo Power art contest that he won already, so that maybe gave him the confidence to apply here. And of course, he was already very talented. I think he was like 16, or like here it says if you are 17 years of age or older. So I'm assuming he was probably 16 or 17. He was very young when he applied to this talent search and was chosen for to work for Homage Studios. His first book was Gen 13, but he's got some stuff published early on. I have this issue. It's called The Art of Homage. That's officially his first published work. He drew a few pages in there of some forgettable characters that I don't think ever appeared ever again.
So the talent search thing I think is really cool though, because as a kid, and really sort of back, I mean, this is in the early 90s, there's really no pathways in. Like maybe you go to a convention and maybe there's an editor there you can talk to. But I don't think any company, I'd never seen something like this before when I was reading comic books. I never saw Marvel or DC going, hey readers, you know, if you like what you're seeing and you think you could be a part of this, like we're doing a search. That never happened. So this was pretty big deal. Pretty amazing. I agree.
Thing. Yeah, to see a major comic publisher actually just putting it out there to everyone to apply, right?
Yeah, just an ad in their own book, which also shows Homage Studios, Jim Lee, Wallace Pataccio, Scott Williams, and Mark Silvestri, because that was the team coming out of Marvel. But just an amazing thing for anybody who did submit and was a part of this to like, oh wow, I could submit and maybe just maybe get in and start making comic books. And they were taking everything, you know, they were taking writers, they were looking for letterers, colorists. It wasn't just one job. So really cool.
But
really
it's
cool moment in time.
And it's interesting to see too that the two, because Homage did it and Extreme Studios did it too, right? And they are both of the studios that kind of went in that direction of setting up a proper studio and having other artists and having a bunch of different books by young up and coming artists, right? Savage Dragon or Highbrow Entertainment, not so much, maybe a little bit later on, but they didn't do an actual talent search. I know Larson kind of went and picked guys who are already professionals. And I think Todd did a similar thing, right? Picking up guys like Greg Capullo and Tony Daniel, who already had proven themselves to a certain extent at Marvel. Homage and Extreme are willing to kind of bet on nobodies basically coming in and working on their books. And of course, just had that more that studio mindset and publishing more books where they would need extra guys coming in.
Yeah, because with Savage, you know, with Eric Larson over at Savage Dragon, he more was like, it's all his guys from the past. It's like people who like, oh, this guy helped me get in over here, or this guy gave me a project back when, or I used to work with this guy. He was all kind of pulling in his buddies who maybe had helped him at one time, and now he was in a good position, so he was trying to give back and help the people he knew. With, you know, Shadowhawk and Jim Valentino, he kind of like stuck to his book, expanded out a little bit to other little projects he wanted to do. But yeah, Jim and Rob, the two guys that were just like, build studios and blow this thing up, and we got to find talent. Little similar to like Valiant in the early days, where they were like having to get who they could get. You know, with budgetary reasons, they had to find new talent that could work for less. I've heard even that there were people, the interns. They had interns who were doing real work. You know, like, hey, your interns, coloring's got to get done. Like it's
Well, Joe Quesada actually started at Valiant doing colors, right, and eventually started drawing a little bit. Left and then came back when he was a bit more of a name to do those Exo Manowar issues. Ninjak, right? He was there for a little while. That's an example of that. And with you mentioned Eric Larson, Savage Dragon, Highbrow Studios. What I noticed is that Eric must have had some sort of relationship with Gaijin Studios, which includes, you know, Brian Steelfreeze, Jason Pearson, this guy named Todd Hayes, and these are all guys who did some work for him with backup stories in Savage Dragon, some of the miniseries that he put out. So, you know, he did kind of must have had some sort of relationship beforehand with the studio, and knowing that they had a talented crop of artists there that he was using on his books. All right. Is that about it
right.
for this review? I think we've covered pretty much everything. Maybe go back for the end just to look at some Jim Lee material. This cool shot of Youngblood.
Yeah.
So if that's it, we're going to see ourselves out here, guys. This was yet another palpitating review of the Image Founding Fathers book. We're currently covering the number 2 issues for all those guys. If you are still watching the channel, guys, Big Baby Reviews, and you are subscribed, thank you so much. We do appreciate the loyalty and all the support that you've given us. And if you are not subscribed, please do so below. It only takes a quick second for you, and it really helps the channel out, helps us grow, and helps get us out there to other people who are into comic books, just like we are. Speaking of comic books, both Mark and I produce our own, so you can check out my stuff, Big Baby and STARCRASHER, at KINGCOMICS.CA. And Mark's got a bunch of projects like Darker Image, Kayfabe, the Death of a Super, that we've done a review of that you can check out. And his stuff is on Big Cartel, and the link will be provided below, so you can go check that out as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything
Darkest
else?
Image.
Darkest Image, excuse me.
Yeah.
Darker Image is the anthology. Yes.
That's their actual book. Yeah. All right.
It's only had 1 issue, so I think Darkest Image already has like more material than the first issue.
Oh yeah, it's just like 500 pages. No big deal.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's only about 20 times more of the first issue of Darker Image. Yeah. Cool. All right. So if that is it, we're gonna. I'll let you go, Mark. Thank you so much once again for being with me and helping out with the video. Really do appreciate it. Everyone out there, go check out Wildcats number 2. Let us know what you think in the comments, and have yourselves a great afternoon, or day, or evening, whenever you're watching this. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Like, subscribe, like, subscribe.
King Comics presents Big Baby, Volume 1, Issues 1 to 13, 204 pages of story and art. King Comics also presents STARCRASHER one-shot, 32 pages, cosmic sci-fi surrealist adventure. You can find these fine comics at KingComics.CA, at MaximusRex13 on Instagram, or on Facebook, MaxRex or Big Baby.